Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we finished off some Ordo missions and that was about it. So this time, you know what, let's actually do an active mission. We'll do Awakenings. Alright. Yep, duking it out against Chaos. Yeah, difficulty tweak is fine.
This looks really bad, Inquisitor. The whole archives fell silent. We don't hear any vox chatter, and there was no attempt to contact us.
Presumably, there are no survivors.
Let's hope so. The Raniellis are the most influential house amongst the Navigator clans in the sector, mostly due to their vast collection of navigational maps and secrets.
I'm heading for the data. I suppose I'll soon find out which traitorous mongrel did these secrets so bad.
So this has been going easy. But last episode I was talking about Capcom briefly before going on a tangent about the new Silent Hill. I really didn't come back to it, but I'd love to see a... Now I'm drawing a blank. Lost Planet. New Lost Planet. I think the last one came out years ago. I think 2012-ish? 2013? It's been a while.
Inquisitor, your timing is impeccable, and quite unfortunate.
You have made a mistake by this incursion, traitorous scum. All you can find here is a swift death.
Appreciate the irony of this situation, lapdog of the false emperor. You have stumbled upon something that doesn't concern your precious Imperium at all.
Your intrusion here alone would justify my presence here.
I find your lack of curiosity distressing, but not surprising. Die then.
The blood on that guardsman body moving and pooling and then disappearing was really confusing me for a moment. But I'd love to see a new Lost Planet. I think there's a lot you could do now that you couldn't do, 10 years ago. And honestly, even if they just made it like a Monster Hunter World clone, I'd be happy. I just want to run around in a macro on foot shooting giant monsters. Simple as that. I have some missions where I fight bandits and all this stuff, and I'd be good. Step up the customization, and not much else you really need.
So, the word bearers are ransacking the archives of the most influential navigator house in the sector. These traitors are always on the hunt for secret knowledge. This is clearly beyond a simple raid. Let's find out what this is.
We'll go this way. Yeah, I had a feeling this was going to be a dead end. Second, I started going left and saw it kept going. I was like, let's clear out the other paths just for loot's sake and clearing of enemies. Plus, it'll all probably loop back anyways. But yeah, Lost Planet. Lost Planet was a fun game. PvP kind of sucked, but I feel like that almost goes hand in hand with a lot of Japanese games where their PvP is dreadful, but their PvE content is astounding. But I think that's mostly because it's the way I describe Umbrella Corps to people. You can take the game out of Japan, but you can't take the Japan out of the game. They have very specific ways of doing things, and even if they try to do reaching international acclaim and international sales, they still to a degree are like, no, we don't need to adjust anything. You know, we're doing it our way. And 9 times out of 10, I agree. You know, Japanese studios should do their thing. But when it comes to multiplayer, I think following a more international style is preferable. Because as we saw with Umbrella Corps, the style they went with was not good. Also, esports. God, every time I see I'm glad esports ready at launch is a term that has died horribly. I've heard that way too many times over the years, and never did it end well. Like, I had a discussion about that too, regarding, like, remember the Overwatch Pro Circuit? I think it still exists. I don't know, I've never watched it. But the people who invested in it got scammed. Bobby Kotick hustled those dudes for their money. I don't know why I said dudes like that. I think I was going to say something else and my mind just filled in the blank with dude. But he hustled them so hard. Oh yeah, we're going to have a pro league. I think they were trying to get like stadiums built. Can you imagine that? The Overwatch Stadium? Oh god, I couldn't go see that. I even think these like 100 Thieves Cash App gaming fort place, I think they're the dumbest concept. Let's corporatize video games to a degree that's unheard of. I mean, I described it at one point as dystopian, and people were like, that's not dystopian. I'm like, yes, it is. Dystopia is a term for literally a situation that is not what you want. You know, a non-preferable situation. You could call the lack of free healthcare in America and reliance on corporations who will pick and choose who gets what based on your own pre-existing medical conditions dystopian. You could call a lot of things dystopian. I think turning something like gaming, you know, a hobby you do at home, content creation, something you typically do at home, where your creative juices can flow, where you can just chill, pants on, pants off, 40 in your hand or not, do what you need, and being like, nah, bro, you gotta come into the office and play Fortnite. Dude, you gotta come in to the Totino's League of Legends lounge and play. Like, no, this is stupid. This is gross. And I think stuff like that, just that and the whole esports thing, it ruins it. Plus, it's not fun when it's like, oh, here's the Seattle Mutineers. Ooh. Yeah, pro league names for like League are stupid. Team Solo Mid, Ninjas in Pajamas, Envious, you know, Cloud9. Some of them sound dumb as hell. But they were teams that earned their spot that year. Pro League, you don't get a free spot. You have to qualify.
Whatever you were trying to achieve here, traitor, it is over.
What a shame, Inquisitor. Sadly, you will not believe me. But with this folio, I will not only bring justice to those who deserve it, but I will aid your pitiful cause. In a way.
Lies and empty promises. That's all.
Pity.
You know what, I'm just gonna skip all the stuff from here on in. If you're that interested in the story, I did all the playthroughs with my assassin. And 95% of the dialogue is just, "Gur me Angie, you will die here, traitor, you will die here, dog of the Imperium."
Inquisitor, the Argus scans show that the remaining hostiles are fleeing towards
Nobody's having a deep philosophical dialogue in these games.
I'm on my way. They won't escape.
You must stop them before they initiate the teleport sequence.
That's a good distance to chase a dude down. That's fine, I can run through. Excuse me.
Inquisitor, I couldn't help but overhear your conversation with the captain. I must strongly warn you to avoid the Guelod system. I am a Stormwatcher space marine. We are the protectors of the sector, and we're aware of all the forbidden places. The darkest corners of the void. No one should enter.
And the Guillet system is one of those destinations.
I strongly advise you to forget you ever heard that name.
And in return, I strongly advise you not to tell me what I should do. Eliminating all remaining obstacles. No one escapes the Emperor's wrath. At your command.
Yay, we did it. Yeah, we got no gear off that mission.
We've updated the navigational charts with
On behalf of the
Lord Inquisitor.
Oh yeah, this is all the stuff about the Stormwatchers. Had to think about what this whole chain of missions was about.
I'm in. The place looks.
But yeah, back to the esports stuff. It's...
The automated.
I don't know, it's weird. These games really tried to set up like proper teams. I mean, Call of Duty's even doing that now, having franchises, and it's so weird because franchises work, I think, in games
This must be the
where you have large numbers of players.
brothers used to gather here to feast and celebrate the glorious victories. There should be a terminal nearby where you can turn back the power.
We'll hit this and see if we get more dialogue. Okay, cool. But, you know, you'd sit there and you could have these bigger teams where you could have trades, you can have drafts. Overwatch is what, now that Overwatch 2 is out, that's what, 5v5? You know, League, they at least do individual teams that have to earn their spots, but that's 5v5. You don't really have room for trades. You don't do a draft. You know, people pick up guys from Challenger tier. They'll just pick them up if they need them. But they're not... We don't have an NBA draft for any game. You could. You very well could if you had a game that was large enough scale. But I don't... I say that, but I also think it's possible. As I say, I don't know how you would watch it. But in that same vein, what you would do, I think, is... For live events, I have no idea. Because if you have, let's say it's 24v24. You know, you have full 6 4-man squads, or 4 6-man squads, or 3 8-man squads. Actually, in that case, you need to do 32v32 if we're going to do 8-man squads for a proper platoon. If we're using mag as a reference point. But you'd have that. Yeah, Battle Arena. But so, you'd have that, and you'd have to do just, for audiences there, you'd have to have, like, general flyovers of map areas with stuff kind of showing, or you'd have to have, like, security cam style views. And then for Twitch streams or anything that could be done post-game, I think you could start doing, like, switching between different player cameras and doing a lot more fancy work, which would make, like, after the show, editing a little bit more intensive, but you'd have an interesting show on your hands. But I also think then you can necessitate set teams. You can necessitate actually having drafts and trades. Because if you have 32 guys, you can trade a guy. You can trade a couple people here and there. But of course, it still kind of raised the question of why would you need a draft? You know, any common person would just say, pick a guy up if he's good. Set up a... Let's say you have your TSM, your team solo mid. Your mid-season, you find a guy. Have a... We'll consider it like a farm league. If we're going to use, in this case, at least that I know of as a hockey term. You know, you have your farm league. You have... I'm trying to think... For Minnesota, what do we have for hockey? I can't remember what our farm league team is. Never pay attention. Just know when people get brought up or brought down. But, you know, you'd have your farm league. You get this guy, you're like, okay, hey, we want you for next season, so we're going to bring you on our semi-pro team. Because there's no restrictions. That I know of, at least if we're still using hockey as the analogy. But, you know, we'll bring this guy in and have him join the team. You know, a draft just seems silly. But I do like the idea of, you know, trades and stuff like that. It's just someone needs to make a game and support it. And that's the real kick in the nuts. Support. I will say this to my dying death. Mag could have been an amazing game. If Sony were to just suddenly turn around and be like, let's do something crazy. Let's check out my YouTube channel, and heard me say these words, make a Mag 2, and they did it, I'd be astounded. And it would be a great decision, in my eyes. But you could do a lot with it. But it needs to be supported. It can't be a one-and-done game. It can't be, oh, we supported it for 3 months like Ubisoft did. Far Cry 5 with their live service stuff. Oh, we support it for 5 months. Or not 5 months, 3 months. Okay, we're done. Nah, the game, it would need to be, for Sony, it would need to be a flagship game. It would have to be, I think, a PlayStation and PC game just to bring in the maximum number of people. And go from there. I think you could do a competitive mode. Honestly, you could really rig up multiple competitive modes. Considering, like, Sabotage was good. If you wanted to, you could do a Call of Duty Hardpoint style, which I think would be interesting. I would even say Acquisition. And I know people hated Acquisition, which, for those who didn't experience it, it was 64 versus 64. And what you did was you had an attacking team and a defending team. The attacking team had to get to these, like, parking garage. Well, I mean, they're not even really parking garage, they're like shipping containers with a quote-unquote experimental vehicle. They're an APC. You would steal it and have to drive it back to an extraction point, and if you got, like, 4 vehicles out, you won. As defenders, you had to stop them. This meant, a lot of cases, people just slapped a bunch of mines down in front of the vehicle. and then the second a guy would hop in, he'd just get vaporized. It worked. It was great. And I think it was a fun mode. It was just, at times it was a little grindy if a team was really good defensively, because you could put like, hedgehogs, the spiked, like they're not spiked, they're just like metal I-beams in like X forms, X layers or X positions that let them block vehicles. It was that with like razor wire, and it would block vehicles from passing through. So you'd have defending teams planting, like building those, and you'd have attacking teams planting charges to detonate them, which they really, they could have done like a Bangalore torpedo, but I guess putting just like a C4 charge and having it count down, nobody ever defused them anyways. Alright, let's knock this third mission out. Caius Thorn, tell us about your chapter. Don't care.
I'm in. I need direction.
You're in the right place. This corridor leads to the armory, one of the most well-guarded areas in any Stormwatcher outpost.
But yeah, that could be... Acquisition could have been a game mode. That would be actually pretty fun to watch. And from a competitive standpoint, you could have cameras, or like a quote-unquote cameraman following each squad. Kind of, clipping in for like the post-game edit. Clipping in like when guys are giving orders or when a firefight breaks out. And I think it'd be good. I need to actually, as I say this, I need to work on my mag video. I was gonna do one. I've been meaning to do this one for years. I just always put it off because... Mostly because of how my Resident Evil one didn't do that well. And I never really understood what was it about it that didn't work. Was it too inside baseball trying to go over design, or what it was? Still gotta do one for Dust as well. I've been sitting on the footage for ages. But yeah, I think there's a competitive edge there, and that the size I think would be a big attracting thing for viewers, because like Battlefield tried to do competitive, and I bet most of you who hear that probably don't remember it, and it was Battlefield 1. They tried to do a competitive circuit, but it was like a 6v6. And it absolutely sucked. Because it took away... It wasn't Battlefield. It was pre-built classes with very slight modifications. Like there was a... Since it's Battlefield 1, it's World War 1. One of the things you could do was take like... There was a vehicle class. And it was a Renault FT. Which... Quick history lesson. Renault FT1, which is the tank designation, is the American designation, and FT literally stands for French tank. That's how creative we Americans were. We're just like, yeah, what do we call the French tank? French tank? And everybody's just like, okay, yeah, that works. It's not like there was really FT2. If you're really going to count like the Char 2C BIS or whatever it was, the one that they made like 6 of, I think. Or no, that was that the Saint Charmant? One of the tanks they made like 6 of. And that was it. Well, at least the FT lights got a number of them made. They saw more spread out combat than any other tank. Outside of like Mark IV land ships, I think. But, you know, they failed to do it by trying to condense down, and I think there's a market for people interested in larger scale combat videos and a competitive circuit. The only problem is going to be prize earnings. You know, flat out, that's going to be the problem. Because $100,000 divided between, you know, 32 guys, it's not a lot of money, if we're being honest. Like, ooh, you guys each made like $3,000. I mean, yeah, you're playing video games for a living, and in theory, your money mostly comes from stream donations and sponsorship deals. Like, have you ever looked at some of these esport team jerseys? They're looking like NASCAR jackets sometimes. And as I use an example, you know, 100 Thieves with the Cash App compound, the Totino's, whatever the hell. They have a corporate branding for every room in their compound. I don't know, I don't consider it a compound. You don't have a courtyard. If your building does not have a courtyard, it is not a compound. Waco was a compound. That one cult that had the pyramid, that was a compound. Heaven's Gate didn't have a compound. They didn't have a courtyard. They simply had a building. It's important things like being able to show you have a compound that shows you're a true cult. Or at least that if you have a courtyard, you have a compound. You can still be a cult without one, but you're just not a cool one. You're not a successful cult. Not yet. But yeah, I definitely think that there's a market for everything, really. It's just who's gonna take the leap. And as it stands, everybody's rushing to stupid extraction shooters. Oh, man. That was another thing, like, that trend went from like, hey, this doesn't really exist, to everyone's like, we have to make one of these. We don't know anything about, you know, what to improve, but we're gonna make one. It's like, maybe you should do research. Just saying. You know, like, 2042's DMZ, or not DMZ, what is it? Hazard Zone. Wouldn't consider that one a sterling success. Especially when people complain, like, hey, there's no incentive. There's no reason to do anything. There's no marketplace. I just show up, earn credits for doing a thing, then leave to earn credits to buy guns, to go back in to earn credits to buy guns, and it's... You could argue even, to a degree, that's Tarkov. But at least Tarkov's like, hey, you need to upgrade stuff. Hey, you can find attachments. Hey, you can do stuff. There's a marketplace, you know, there's a lot to it. Which, once again, you could do something like that, you know, marketplace, with, you know, Dust. I really hope CCP, the EVE devs, are making a new game. They're making a shooter, I know that. I tried to get a job. I applied for it, I was like, yo, let me in, fam. And they're like, nah. Maybe because I'm not in England, but... whatever, I just hope they learn from past mistakes and make a good game. Said it before, I'll say it again. If a new Dust game comes out and it's for consoles, or if I get off my ass and figure out how to get a good frame rate and record, I'm gonna play that a lot. Hey, I never remember the name. I hate corn vehicles. Slaughter Brute? No, Slaughter Brute's the... No, is it a Slaughter Brute? No. I don't know, man. It's corn, it's Angie, it's red. Because Hellbrute is the Dreadnought. This is a something. I'll end up looking on Lexicanum, seeing it and being like, oh, I'm an idiot. And that's fine. You know what? I'll take the L on that one and acknowledge I can never remember them. I try. That's all I can say. Yeah, teleport!
Use the coordinates. Thorn is in the medical ward.
Inquisitor, wall fluctuations peaking in the target zone. Motive force dispersion on the increase. Warp anomalies inbound. Disruption scanners are also picking up amplified warp energies, tearing apart the central hub of the station.
So besides all this, there is one big problem manifesting in the outskirts. I'll need it exactly as soon as possible.
You know, just thinking about, like, this game, and then by extension Space Marine 2, it'd be cool if, as Chaos, you could summon, like, Bloodletters or Chaos Demons somehow. Like, you pick a Sorcerer class, and you can get an ability that lets you summon a demon. It's just AI controlled, you know, maybe it follows you around, maybe it just runs out and tries stabbing someone. But either way, it fights. That'd be cool. You know, it really kind of leans into the Chaos vibe. I guess the thing then is, it becomes a force multiplier. So they either have to become really weak, which then people just won't use them, or they'll become so popular, or, as I say it, and I think it becomes a thing. What you do is you do like Battlefront. And what you do... Sorry for that delay, my brain just kind of like shut off for a second. But what you do is you make it so there's a limited number in play at any time. You know, oh, there can only be 3 sorcerers. Okay, so you got 3 demons, that's it. Or you just say, screw it, let it happen, and you give Space Marines the ability to summon something. Oh, hey, you can call in Imperial Guardsmen. You know, lead the charge. Suddenly a bunch of guardsmen come running in Hut 234 to get shot. Granted, I'd also like to see that from Chaos. We have Renegade Guardsmen. I think that would be even more fun, because then it gives the fights a bigger scale. Even though it's like, oh, it's a squad of guardsmen, they're gonna literally get slapped once and explode into meat paste, like a dropped can of ragu. But at the same time, it'd be really cool. And the AI can be fairly basic. I explode the skulls.
Thor, are you out of your mind?
But I think that would be an option. Because that would kind of remind me of, like, the UNSC Marines in Halo's Warzone mode, where they would just, like, spawn at a base and fight. Which, I guess, if they did something like that, it would kind of turn, potentially, Space Marine 2 into, like, pseudo-MOBA territory. But I think having NPC soldiers, that's like Titanfall. And I think having NPC soldiers shouldn't be, like, a exclusively kind of like MOBA concept. And I think that might be a better step to take in games than like how Battlefield is trying to do like their 128-man fights. Admittedly, I don't know how the hell Mag did it back in the day with 256. Some techno wizardry, honestly, but you know, there's potential. Build up NPCs and AI a bit more, and then add extra people.
By the Skull Throne, after all...
Because when you really look at it, stuff like previous Battlefields didn't need to go past 64 players. It was a healthy amount. And I think just doing bots to add some extra guys really wouldn't hurt. And this way it's not as intensive, like, oh, we gotta remember every attachment on every player, potentially doubling that, and then, oh, what skins do they have, and... because that's where a lot of overhead, I think, comes into play. Yay, skill point. Whole lot of nothing on that loot. But the skill point, though, that's useful. Yeah, suppression damage sucks, but that 10% radius is gonna be good. Nah, we'll talk to Caius, we'll get this out of the way.
This is
Yeah, your guys are Chaos Space Marines, you should have saw it coming. And that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button, it helps out the channel a lot, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.